Today's daily cyber briefing brought to you by That Security Company. It is Friday the 8th of September, 8:30 in the morning, and my name is Rich Benfield, standing in for Stephen Ridgway, who is on annual leave. Thank you all for joining. So today we have a malvertising campaign affects macOS, so that's a malware. We have an Apache vulnerabilities expose servers to remote code execution attacks. And two new patches for iOS and macOS. They're 0-day patches. And Iranian hackers breach US aviation org via Zoho and Fortinet bugs. And finally, CISA warns of critical Apache RocketMQ bug exploited in attacks, which actually probably relates to the 2 0 days that we've got in one of the other articles. So, to begin, Mac users beware. Malvertising campaign spreads Atomic Stealer macOS malware. So, a new malvertising campaign has been observed distributing an updated version of a macOS Stealer malware called Atomic Stealer, or AMOS, indicating that it's being actively maintained by its author. So, it's an off-the-shelf Golang malware, and it's available for $1,000 per month. Seemingly yet another malware available in the marketplace. So the Atomic Stealer first came to light in April 2023. And shortly after that, new variants with expanded sets of information gathering features were detected in the wild. They target gamers and cryptocurrency users. And it seems to be that this is sort of leveraged and presented to users via Google Ads as their primary distribution vector. So, and it's generally when users are searching for either popular software or legitimate or cracked, and they're showing these bogus ads that direct to websites hosting rogue installers. The latest campaign involves the use of a fraudulent website for TradingView. And it is available for both Windows and Linux, apparently. And the macOS payload, tradingview.dmg, is a new version of the Atomic Stealer, so watch out for that. And it's bundled in an ad hoc signed app. So it will actually install and it will work and it will do its thing. And once it's executed, it prompts the user to enter their password on a fake prompt and harvest your files as well as data stored in your iCloud keychain and web browsers. So as you can see, this isn't just limited to a local machine. So it's actually quite important, especially given that Mac malware isn't exactly common, and what there is out there tends to be detected less frequently than Windows. And in fact, the developer for AMOS actually made it a selling point that their toolkit is capable of evading detection. Next up, we have, oops, close my tabs. That was a bad plan. Next up, we have an Apache superset vulnerabilities expose servers to remote code execution attacks. So we've got patches for Apache that have been released recently to address two new security vulnerabilities in Apache superset that could be exploited by an attacker to gain remote code execution on affected systems. The update, and it's version 2.1.1, plugs CVEs 2023 39265 and 37941, which makes it possible to conduct nefarious actions once a bad actor is able to gain control of Superset's metadata database. Outside of those weaknesses, it actually patches some more as well. The latest version of Superset also remediates a separate improper REST API permission issue, which is CVE 36388. And that allows for low privilege users to carry out server-side request forgery attacks. Superset by design allows privileged users to connect to arbitrary databases and execute arbitrary SQL queries against those databases using the powerful SQL Lab interface. And that's directly from Horizon 3.ai's Naveen Sankavalli, who said that in a technical write-up. They also went on to say, if Superset can be tricked into connecting to its own metadata its own metadata database. An attacker can directly read or write application configuration through SQL Lab. This leads to harvesting credentials and remote code execution. So if you have Apache Superset, you need to be patching that as a matter of urgency. Nobody likes remote code execution attacks. So let's get those covered. So we've also got a couple of, in terms of patches, got a couple from Apple around iOS and macOS 0 days. We have CVE 2023 41064 and 41061, which are for Image.io and Wallet, respectively. So we have, for the first one, which is processing a maliciously crafted image may lead to arbitrary code execution. Apple is aware of a report that this issue may have been actively exploited in the wild. Buffer overflow issue was addressed with improved memory handling also. So that's an interesting one. That's for Image.io. The second one for Wallet says a maliciously crafted attachment may result in arbitrary code execution. Again, Apple is aware of a report that this issue may have been actively exploited in the wild, and a validation issue was addressed with improved logic. So here's the interesting thing with macOS and iOS. Apple keep having to release emergency patches because it's happening more frequently. Apple is struggling to keep pace with highly skilled attackers. I mean, so far this year, they've rolled out fixes for 13 documented in the wild 0 days in iOS, iPadOS, and macOS platforms. And in fact, the company's also shipped lockdown mode in direct response to these attacks. But the pace of exploitation has not slowed. I think long gone are the days where everyone only targeted Windows systems. Do you remember years ago, people used to not even bother to run any form of antivirus on macOS because they used to say, but viruses don't exist for macOS. Well, here's the thing. They do, and they're gaining in popularity. So protect your systems, folks, okay? Next up, we have Iranian hackers breach US aviation org via Zoho and Fortinet bugs. So this is interesting because we're talking state-sponsored actors here, but it's also interesting because a lot of people use Zoho and a lot of people use Fortinet. So let's jump in. State-backed hacking groups have breached a US aeronautical organization using exploits targeting critical Zoho and Fortinet vulnerabilities. A joint advisory published by CISA, the FBI, and the United States Cyber Command revealed on Thursday. The threat groups behind this breach are yet to be named, but while the joint advisory didn't connect the attackers to a specific state, US Cybercom's press release links the malicious actors to Iranian exploitation efforts. So, CISA, FBI, and CNMF confirmed that nation-state advanced persistent threat, that's APTs, actors exploited CVE 2022, so quite an old one, 47966. That's 47966, and they used it to gain unauthorized access to a public-facing application, which was Zoho Manage Engine Service Desk Plus. They managed to establish persistence and move laterally through the network. This article I'm reading from is full of useful links to the advisory and all sorts. We'll drop it in the socials for you. It's worth reading if you are using Manage Engine Service Desk Plus. Now, they go on to say this vulnerability allows for remote code execution on the Manage Engine application. Additional APT actors were also observed exploiting CVE 2022 42475. So we've got two CVEs in play here, 47966 and 42475, both from 2022. And so they're exploiting these to establish presence on the organization's firewall. As the three US agencies warn, these threat groups frequently scan for vulnerabilities on internet-facing devices unpatched against critical and easy-to-exploit security bugs. That'll be the OpenVAS scans that you see on your firewall logs, okay? You can't stop them. 9 times out of 10, it's informational only, but you probably should just keep an eye on the IP addresses those are coming from. So after infiltrating a target's network, the attackers will maintain persistence on hacked network infrastructure components. These network devices will likely be used as stepping stones for lateral movement within the victim's networks as malicious infrastructure or a combination of both. So there are mitigations that were shared with today's advisory, and you can follow the links in the article that we'll attach on the socials and find those, or just simply Google them. But the standard approach applies, secure all systems against all known exploited vulnerabilities and monitor for unauthorized use of remote access software and remove unnecessary accounts and groups, especially privileged accounts. So next up, again from the States, CISA warns of critical Apache RocketMQ bugs that have been exploited in attacks. So the US Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, has added to its catalogue of known exploited vulnerabilities. A critical severity issue this is, okay, and it's tracked to CVE 2023 33246. That's 33246. And that affects Apache's RocketMQ distributed messaging and streaming platform. Multiple threat actors are possibly exploiting this vulnerability at the moment to install various payloads on impacted systems. So this applies to RocketMQ versions 5.1.0 and below, okay? So check your versions, folks. And if not, you need to patch. So exploiting this vulnerability is possible without authentication, and it has been leveraged in the wild since at least June by the operators of the Dreambus botnet to deploy a Monero cryptocurrency miner. So, okay, granted, could be worse, but a cryptocurrency miner will destroy your system resources. It really will. And you don't want people on your systems doing stuff like that anyway. So, CISA is warning all federal agencies in the States that they should patch CVE 2023 33246 vulnerability for RocketMQ by September the 27th. And that seems pretty fair. You want a quick turnaround on these patches for sure. If updating the application to a safe version or mitigating the risk in some other ways is not possible, then you need to discontinue using the product, according to CISA advice. Yes, this is very US-centric, but the same flaws apply to the UK. The Cybersecurity Agency notes that an attacker can exploit the issue by using the update configuration function to execute commands as a system uses that RocketMQ is running. So this is the thing. It's using your system accounts. And NIST adds that the result is the same if an attacker forges the RocketMQ protocol content. So really, you got two sort of two issues there that are going to get resolved by patching. So you've got malware essentially running as the system level user, and you've also got forged protocol content. So definitely patch RocketMQ. So trying to find out how many potential RocketMQ targets are exposed online. Researchers looked for hosts with TCP port 9876 used by a RocketMQ name server, and they found about 4,500 systems. So they are out there, and therefore they are targetable. Most of those systems are actually concentrated in one country, which could mean that many of them are honeypots set up by researchers. So the issue might not necessarily be as widespread as it sounds, but obviously you will know if you're running RocketMQ. And therefore get yourself patched. Okay, so that rounds up today's cybersecurity briefing. That's all the news. We will put the links in all the socials, as those YouTubers like to say. Like, share, and comment. Thank you so much. We'll speak to you tomorrow.